race and race politics was a way that I could speak my voice without it becoming too personal. The issues of minimalism, conceptualism, coupled with politic, had an avenue for me to enter and create my own voice. My work is very physical and almost performative in cases. Sometimes the work is the residue of a performance that you never get to see. Over time, as an artist develops a kind of visual vocabulary, you start to learn where to turn the volumes up and where to turn them down. You start to understand not only your language, you're starting to become more comfortable with the white space as an institution and what it represents, and your work starts to gain its own history. I'm almost creating a memory for you. And that's what I mean when I say visual DJing. You don't want to give away everything that you're playing right away. I started to research some of the cartoons that were familiar to me from my own childhood, from other childhoods, and started to look at the history of cartooning, and came across a lot of what would be called race cartoons. And they were politically based. They had a lot of kind of stereotypical figures. They were very anti-Semitic, very racist, and very highly charged in their political direction. I started to look at early Disney cartoons because Disney had this kind of veneer of these lovable characters, and there was this kind of insidiousness to some of the undertones that were there in some of those cartoons. The one that jumped out at me the most was probably Dumbo. And he becomes the center of this ridicule because he doesn't look like everybody else. These crows, these black stereotypical figures, teach Dumbo to overcome this idea of him looking different and being different than everybody. Bosco and Honey were a series of cartoons that developed since the 40s, really, that kind of mirrored the way that Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse operated, but they were more racialized. I thought that here are these highly charged, racialized images that mirror the way that racist tropes exist, that they don't ever really disappear, that there's this residue that's left behind. I was doing a series of chalkboards, and the chalkboards didn't have any marks or gestures or any kind of imagery that was on the surface. At a certain point, I realized that if I drew one of these cartoon figures on the chalkboard and tried to erase it, it didn't completely erase. It's through all of the layers of history that's on the surface. And the chalkboard was the perfect surface for me to work on with that because of the inherent meaning of what a chalkboard implies. It's that place of learning, it's that place of teaching, it's that place of authority. So with the cartoons and the crows specifically, in the bronzes, in the new pieces, there's a permanence to this idea of bronze and a historical sensibility to the material that I'm really building up and tearing down the surfaces comes out of looking at vintage chalkboards and the aging and the surface that's created, that kind of patina that's created when a history to an object is sort of scratched out, quite literally. Shooting stars, they're very romantic. It's a motif that I've played with for a very, very long time. They're also very tragic, they're very sad. They deal with dreaming. In a lot of ways, they deal with hope. In a lot of ways, they deal with the notion of a fallen star, somebody that had a flourishing career and it burned out, or a star that never really materialized. I'm always looking and searching for those kinds of images that have multiple meanings, hopefully, positive as well as negative. It's not just an additive process, it's also a reductive process. And they get covered up and scraped down and reworked and over time, and layers from the previous work starts to come through. So They are very, very physical to make, and they take a great deal of time to get them to a place where quite literally they tell me when it's time to move on to the next stage.